I know we've got a lot of questions and a lot of information on the contribution agreement, a lot of new staff, so it's great to actually start to meet people and to put the names along with the faces, and I talked to most of you via email, but yeah, it's nice to actually sit and talk and meet with people. Again, I'm Cheryl Phillips. I'm running the NRCS contribution agreement, and do we have the, I've got a little slide.
Cheryl, hold the mic. We can't hear you.
You can't hear me back there? Oh, I hate sticking this thing up my nose, it feels like. So I just wanted to start maybe with just a really brief kind of background and history on the NRCS contribution agreement. Coming up. Basically, the NRCS contacted the association about the contribution agreement in late 2014, early 2015, and our first, the next one. Our first contribution agreement was actually took effect in May of 2015. So our first contribution agreement was $1,075,000 in funds for both administrative and CRP work. Next one. Originally, our original contract has now been modified twice. Once again in 2015 and again in 2016 with an additional $3.3 million added for both the CRP and the assistance portion. One more. So what does that mean to all of you? That means the association has entered into 97 separate contribution agreements with the districts to provide that administrative assistance support. With the CRP work, because it's voluntary, you can do the CRP work if you prefer to or not. The first year that we had CRP money available, we had 69 sub-agreements. We had 69 districts that were participating. This current contract that we're in right now, we have 86 sub-agreements and 86 districts that are participating in that CRP work. A new change, I have been now doing this job for 1 year. God, it seems like so much longer than that. But anyway, it's been 1 year that the association, originally it was kind of, they were just splitting up the work between Kelly and Gina, and things I just don't think were completely getting done. So they decided to have a dedicated person that just did the NRCS contribution agreement, and that's me. I started last year in July. So, I appreciate the conversation about who to go to and to go to your reps, but if you do have any questions at all that are specific to the contribution agreement, whether it's the CRP portion or the administrative assistance portion, you can just contact me directly, and I will, work with the NRCS if I need to do that or whatever. So please do that. In addition, I'm just one person, and I've been out in the field. I kind of know some of your programs, but I don't know all of your work. So it's been a real huge benefit to me right now that it was suggested that a task force be started to just kind of help with this contribution agreement, and that has happened, and it has been fabulous. I don't have the list of all the people in the task force. I've got it to present to the board meeting later this afternoon, but obviously Rhonda, we've got Megan here, Carla's in the back, Stacy's not here, Charla, anyway, and Thad. So we've got quite a few people that have volunteered to assist me with just kind of some of the details, and it's nice for me to be making the decisions just on my own, but with all of this task force help, I think we've really made some good improvements to this new contribution agreement. So where is the status of our new contribution agreement? I submitted all the paperwork for it back in May. It has gone through our state level, and it's now sitting with the National grant and finance team, or whatever they're called. It has been sitting with them for several months now. We had originally hoped to have a start date of July 1st because our existing administrative assistance contract ended at the end of June, so there would be no lapse in service. That didn't happen, of course. June 1st is come and gone, and August 1st is starting to look like it's going to come and go. So we were hoping for August 1st. Again, it's with the national team, so it's really out of our hands. Early August, mid-August, we're hoping that work will get done. But as soon as that NRCS contract is signed and executed, then our work here with all the districts can begin. I have all the in the meantime, I'm collecting all of your sub-agreements, all of your paperwork. We'll get those signed, and then as soon as the contribution agreement between NRCS and AISWCD is funded, executed, we'll get the districts working. Available funds for VISCO is the $1.125 million for CRP and the $1.4 million for assistance. And let's hold off on that. So that's kind of just an overview, but the rest of it we're going to just tag team. So I guess our thought here was to just try to provide as many resources as we can on the new contribution agreement to help new employees to understand the process, to explain some of the changes from the contribution agreement from last year to this year, and then maybe just kind of go through some of the steps on now what are you actually expected to do. So with the CRP, we're going to start with that one. This was a brilliant thing from the task force. I love it because in years past, we have just asked for your plans of work. And they're all signed and dotted and everything is good. And then I get the plans of work. And in this case, we only have 1.125 million, but you guys have requested 1.9 million. So I got to make cuts. And this year, we're going to try to kind of get around that by having the pre-proposals so that you can send me what type of workload you anticipate. Then I can compare it to the 1.125 million and make adjustments as we need before we then go to our plan of work. So you can really see that this year we're trying to streamline. Again, another task force has been working diligently on this. We're trying to streamline the reporting and the paperwork. So I'm trying to do one page. Everything will be on one page, hopefully. So the pre-proposal is a one-page deal. I just would like to know what you expect to have for all of the different categories. There are some changes, as we can see. We've been working with the NRCS to include some practices that have not been in there before. Windbreaks is a good example. And what's the other one? Oh, and then just putting in some additional practices in conservation cover. So there are some new practices, so just make sure that you keep that in mind as you're putting in your pre-proposals. And then as we scroll down a little bit onto that, the districts have been telling me for the last several months about the issues with the revisions for mid-contract management. And it's not currently funded. We do not have a funding mechanism built into any of our current CRP workload to deal with this mid-contract management. So I brought that to the attention of the NRCS, and we're working through that issue. Initially, they were saying, yeah, let's maybe start to do some of this mid-contract management. We'll put a dollar amount on it. We'll kind of get your ideas of how many of these mid-contract management revisions might be out there. I know that the NRCS is still kind of negotiating with the FSA to kind of determine what that workload would be, how that workload is going to look, and how that might come to the district. So this would be for planning purposes only, it says right there, but can you just give me some kind of indication of how many plans for mid-contract management revisions you might have so we can start to plan that workload? And anybody have any questions on the pre-proposals before I move on?
Can I make a comment?
Uh-huh.
So I worked on mine the other day, and I had put my re-enrollment acres in that section E. I can't read it. but only new acres are allowed to go there, correct? Rhonda fixed me on that.
That's one of the things we're going to touch on.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to
So-
get into some of the more
We'll
specifics.
talk about that in a minute.
So could I suggest that maybe on that line E where you've got that title, CRP practice application, could you put just new applications only in that line maybe?
We could look at that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Once I explain it, there might be a reason why not to do that. So,
Okay.
but yeah, we'll make a note of that.
Okay.
Okay, so once I collect all this information, I'll start comparing it to what we actually have our budget available, and then we'll move into the plan of work. And surprisingly, it looks quite similar to the pre-proposal. So basically, I'll have to then work with every single district who is putting in a proposal for CRP work, and we'll discuss, what funds are available with what you proposed, and we'll work from there. Then you guys will need to work out your plan of work, have that signed by your DCs, and then get that back to me. Hopefully this will all occur and be occurring, and once we get all these things signed and dealt with, then we will have a signed NRCS AISWCD contribution agreement, and we can then start work pretty immediately. But again, I'm trying to streamline the process, so I'd like everything to just be staying on the one page. We can say if it's an original plan, a revised plan, county name, of course, everything should total automatically. We've been locking up the cells there so we don't get information where we don't need it. And again, these would need to be filled out with your name and address. You can't imagine how many times that is not included, and then signed by the employee and your DC. Okay. Yes. So we've been kind of messing around with it. So if as you get into these forms, you will see that only the yellow highlighted cells need to be filled out, and some of them, if you don't fill them out, it won't let you print it. So it's just a reminder to make sure that all your information is on there. So if you get that warning, just go back and make sure you filled in your name, or you filled in your email address or whatever. But see, she keeps reminding me of all these things. Okay, so then one of my other issues that I've been having is these are contracts, people. So I need your original signatures. All right? That doesn't mean that you need to make a copy of the form and put it in the mail to me, but you do need to make a copy of that form, sign it, and scan it, and mail it back to me. These are contracts, and we're potentially getting tens of thousands of dollars. So just a little, in the script font, and you sign your names, I'm not going to be accepting those. With the with the plans of work and the sub-agreements, I'm not going to be accepting staff signature, because it is a contract with your directors. So please make sure your directors sign that unless you have signature authorization. And if you have a signature authorization, make sure you send me a copy of that signature authorization. This is a federal grant, so it's $2.7 million, and we have a good chance of being audited at some point in time. So just keep this in mind as we progress through. I need signatures. I want them to be real signatures. I've had a lot of people who have actually just made a PDF of their DC signature and then stuck it in there every time, and they sent it, it's, we're in big jeopardy of having some serious issues if we were ever audited. So let's get it done and do it correctly. So you can print them and sign them yourselves and have your DC sign them. If you or your DC uses the authenticated signatures through PDF, those are perfectly fine as well. But those will be what I'll accept. And I think, did we do and the invoice? Yeah, let's go ahead and open up the invoice. So right now the pre-proposals are out to you, but the plans of work and the invoices are not. We are still working out some of the kinks with the NRCS. As you can see, like I brought up earlier, we did add some practices in conservation cover and the water, windbreaks. Those are still being ironed out. I'm still working with the NRCS to make sure that those practices are in there. So until we know for sure, we're just going to work with that pre-proposal at the minute. But with your actual invoice, it will look exactly like your pre-proposal and your plan of work. The only difference will be when you tab down, I still need those work products. So if you go over to tab A, for example, you'll see that tab A, you need to still fill out your track number, and you need to fill out your number of plans. So let's just put an example in there. Put a, I don't know, and then put a number of plans. Now when we go back to our invoice, and this should magically work, right? It should just appear and self-populate for you. So hopefully you should just go straight to those tabs, fill out the information for the work that you've done, and then when you get to the invoice, just double check it to make sure it's good, print it, get it signed, and we'll be good. Now let's go to practice F, because those have some of the drop-down menus. So as you can see, or let's go to E, I'm sorry, E is the one that has more. So on section E, we've got all of these down in drop-down menus for you so that you don't have to retype them all the time. So please, just select which one you're working with, put it in there, put your quantity, put a track number. Ooh, you're gonna get a lot of money. And then again, back to the invoice, and it should just auto-populate. So if you have any problem, and these forms are new, so already the pre-proposal, somebody, we tried to fact check them, and I put numbers in every single box that needed to be put in and made sure that they all calculate correctly, but as many districts have pointed out, especially in practices, I didn't put more than 99 as the number. So if you've got 100 or more, and it's your pre-proposal sheet isn't working out, I've got version 2. So just let me know and I'll send you that. Anything else that we kind of needed to talk about?
Megan, would you go back to section E? I just want to make a comment to you about this section E. When it's auto-populating to the invoice, it is looking for those exact words in that column A there. So you want to either use the drop-down box to select that, or if you happen to have multiple waterways, let's say you're going to do 15 waterways all in a row, you can copy and paste row 8 there into the next 10 or 15, however many of them you need to copy and paste it to. But if you do not use that exact wording, the auto-populate function will not work correctly, okay?
Yeah, so help me out, and if they're not right, then I have to just come back to you and get them all corrected, so. Okay. I think that's kind of running through at least how the invoices, how the plans of work, all of that kind of thing is going to look. Do we have any questions on that? We're going to talk about some of the specifics of actual, what is involved in some of these practices, what is involved in doing the work. But does anybody have any questions on the forms themselves, Karen?
Just to kind of go back to the signature part, I know that you guys have the potential to be audited. Well, I can't speak for every district, but we still have a full audit in Knox County. So on the same lines, when we get an invoice paid from you guys and Kelly has her signature on it, that third signature, if we could have those returned back. I know it's tedious, I know it's time consuming.
No, it's absolutely true. I mean, it's fair's fair, isn't it? If I'm saying you have to send me all your original signatures, the least we should do is sign them and get them back. When I first started doing this, Kelly was on maternity leave for a couple of months, and we just got behind, and she's not done them. So one of the proposals I have is I'll just sign them, because it would just make it one less step. So we'll get to that when we're in the final stages. But yes, I do appreciate that.
One other thing I'm just going to talk to you about, I'll forget it later. Whenever we send you stuff, if you can just let us know that you received it, so we know, because we always get wonky sometimes.
Yeah. So Sandra is saying that if you are sending me invoices and such, for me to just have a quick reply back saying that yeah, I got it.
It just says got it.
I started doing that, and then some people were like, well, I guess you must be saying that just because you think I need to know that you've got it. So Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. With all the sub-agreements, I have been responding to every one of the sub-agreements to let you know, yes, I did receive that, because some of that stuff is time sensitive. So if it's a general consensus, I usually just do a thanks and send it back, okay? All right, I'll keep on. I started doing that originally and then I got away from it, but I'll go back to it. Okay? All right, so we're going to start tag teaming it here, and we've got some lists of, that one. So this is really the child of Rhonda, and I think it's fabulous. So I'll turn it over to you, and let's start looking through some of this.
Okay, underneath your agenda, you should have the CRP contribution agreement reminder, suggestions, and tips. Cheryl has already covered a few of those top ones about the invoice. The very first one, I don't know if any of you guys noticed that as Megan was opening those invoices, there's a function up at the top that she was clicking on that says to enable content, and we'll look at that a little bit closer whenever she opens the assistance one. You need to make sure that you click on that and enable all the content on it again so that all the functions and all that auto-populating stuff works properly. Okay, so Cheryl covered the next three. And then she also has a point in here that our contract year may not be the same as FSA or NRCS, and that's just the way it's going to have to be, folks. Sorry about that.
I forgot about that, but I have had a few questions from the districts where we're doing our plan of work, and the FSA and the NRCS, their plan of work is based on their fiscal year, which is September through August. No, October through September. I knew I got that mixed around in my brain. So that is their schedule of work, but it's not necessarily ours. Our schedule is based on whenever the NRCS provides that funding to us. So that's when our start date is going to be. So, for example, this year, if you are still having some work that needs to be done, maybe it's a review, maybe it's finishing up some of the a practice application, a waterway design, for example, that needs to be done. And although it's kind of this fiscal year, if we get the funding in time, that you can work on that work now as well as next fiscal year's workload. So we're not regulated by a fiscal year. So just put in the workload that you think that you're going to be able to get done. The next one on the list was the invoices at least quarterly. So when I first started on this, they were only accepting invoices quarterly for CRP. It's a lot of money. So if you're waiting 3, 4, 5 months, really, because by the time you invoice it to me, I turn around and I collect all the invoices, and then I invoice the NRCS, and that takes a month and a half to get back. So if you're only invoicing quarterly and you've done all the work in the first month, you're waiting 4 or 5 months to get paid, and I just didn't feel that was equitable. So it's completely up to you. You are free to send me an invoice every single month, every other month, but you must at least send me something quarterly, because I have to report to the NRCS quarterly. So even if your quarterly report is 0, you must send that quarterly report to me. Okay? Yes, and the next tip is just, we put my email there for people who may not have had the need to call me and talk to me before, but if you do have any problems, and I'll reiterate it again because I know it's a chain of command issue, it is important. If you are having some issues on the contribution agreement, they really need to come to either your reps or to me, and I will take that up to the NRCS. The NRCS, they're busy and they don't really need, or they don't really want calls coming in from 97 districts on specific questions. So please make sure that comes through the chain of command.
Okay, the next one, I guess actually we did skip the one about making sure that you keep copies of section A, B, C, D through F in case NRCS comes along and wants to do any kind of quality assurance review on your work. They'll want that information. Yeah, they do have to go to Cheryl as well, but you'll want to have it in your office in case they come to your office and do any kind of quality assurance review. And just as a warning, they have said they're going to do more of those. That's always been a part of this. They've just never had the time and the personnel to get around to doing that. So be prepared, that could happen. So then the next one after that then is, I've heard some people make the comment that they don't really think that they're qualified to do any of this CRP work, and I just want to stress that according to NRCS, you do not have to be a technical person, you do not have to be a certified planner, you don't have to have any type of certification to do most of this CRP work, okay? There are some exceptions to that, of course. Underneath Section E, there are some of those practices that require you to have engineering job approval for those practices. And so if you're doing any of those, someone in your office has to have that engineering job approval. Otherwise, anybody, if you feel qualified and you have the knowledge and the skills to do any of those other practices, you are welcome to do those without any other type of certification, okay? So past this contribution tips page here, there is another spreadsheet that I want to take a quick look at. And this, guys, disclaimer on this is something I threw together, and it is just my opinion about some of these things as far as what the difficulty of them might be. So some of you might disagree with me about it, but I just wanted to give a little bit of information to those of you who have never done a CRP contribution agreement before, or if you have only done the administrative part and maybe you're interested in trying to do some of these other things. This is just simply a list of maybe the skills and the knowledge that you're going to need to accomplish that particular task. And then over here in the far left-hand columns is, again, this is my opinion about what the difficulty rating of that is. And there are some beginning type items that you can do there. And then those SC ones, that's a special certification. Those are the ones that take the engineering job approval to be able to accomplish, okay? So if you're just getting into this and you've never done this before, you might be able to use this to kind of indicate to yourselves which one of these practices might I want to try, okay? And then, without having to switch back, Megan, to the, well, you can if you want, that's fine. The next one is talking about what Melissa was bringing up with the Section A stuff in conjunction with the Section E, the practices and stuff. There's another handout that you have. It's entitled, CRP Sections A, B, and C plans in conjunction with Section E. Okay? Here's the general rule. For the most part, if you are doing plans in Section A, and you have the ability and want to do the practice layout for that particular application, you can also claim that in Section E, okay? But in general, it is just for those applications that it was cropped last year, it wasn't in CRP before, and you're putting the new practice out there. You only do Section E when you are installing a new practice out there, okay? So here's several examples here. An example of that, that first example, a person comes in and makes an application for 3.5 acres. It was cropped last year and they're going to put it to a field border. You can claim both, assuming you're going to do these and want to do these, you can claim that you're going to do the plan in Section A, and you can also claim that 3.5 acres in Section E under the CP 33, okay? The next example there, let's say that the application is for permanent wildlife cover. You're going to go out and do the field investigation, but the wildlife biologist is going to do the practice layout. So you're not going to do the Section E stuff, and you're just going to claim the Section A. Okay? Where we sometimes get into trouble, what Melissa was having difficulty with, was the fact that she had some re-enrollments. And when you have a re-enrollment that is going back to the exact same practice that it was previously in CRP, you do not and cannot claim a practice layout in Section E. Okay, the practice is already out there. There is no need to lay that practice out again. And again, the exception to that rule is if it was already in CRP, but they're switching the practice. Let's say you had a general sign up, it was a CP1. They can't put it back in as a CP1 because we're not having a general sign up. So they decide to switch the practice and put it to a pollinator habitat. In that case, even though it is a re-enrollment of a CRP, they're switching the practice so you can still claim your practice layout in Section E. Okay? In that case, again, it would depend on whether or not you're going to do the field investigation, whether you put your plan part in Section B or Section C, but then you can claim Section E when you're switching the practice to an entirely different practice. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's see, where are we back on our tips? Reminder, suggestions, and tips. About the status reviews. I don't know if you all remember Paula talking about the status reviews. Both the status reviews and the practice checkouts, we're supposed to be doing around 10%, okay? On the practice checkouts, they want us to try and focus on the structural practice checkouts first. That meaning like the waterways and the shallow water areas and things like that. So you're really only going to be doing those structural practice checkouts if you have the engineering job approval to do so. And you will only have the ecological ones if your structural practices don't total 10%. So if you only have 5% of your CRP checkouts being structural ones and you've done all the structural ones, then you can start claiming to do the ecological ones. Does that make sense? Yes?
So if we don't have engineering approval, is all of our 10% going to be the other practices? Or do we just get none?
I think NRCS would say, now I'm not an NRCS person, okay? I think their response to that would be that their technical person should be doing the 10% status review, or the practice checkouts, because they do want those structural things to be the thing that they're focused on. So as a district, if you don't have a person to do that, I think the responsibility for doing those would fall back onto NRCS, okay? We can double check that. Does anybody disagree with that opinion? I'm getting a thumbs up from Kara, okay? We will double check on that, okay? Any of these NRCS questions, we're probably going to try and double check to make sure that we're giving you the correct response on those, okay? A suggestion to make yourself a guidebook, and Megan, can you hold yours out there? Megan has, we used to call these Thunder Books. Those of you who have been around for a long time, we call them Thunder Books, and we're just suggesting that you put everything that you're going to need to do these CRP contribution agreements at your fingertip in some sort of a binder. It'll help you get organized. You know, all these handouts that you're getting today, you might find those useful. Put those in there, and other things that you're going to find that you might need. And there's a suggested list there as well. And also, maybe you want to put the electronic files somewhere collectively together on your computer as well. Okay? Another tip, when you are saving those files, you might want to go ahead and fill out all of the things on those fillable forms. They're going to be the same for every single job sheet that you're filling out. It just makes it a little bit easier to not have to put the seating recommendation in there every single time you open the thing up. And then we just have this last one. When you are in Toolkit and you're reporting your plans, the only way that NRCS has any proof that we were the ones that actually did that plan is for you to make sure that you check that the Conservation District as the person who did that plan. Okay?
You gotta say something.
I think that's all I have for CRP.
Okay. Is it good?
I think so.
All right, so we've been asked to tape this just because there were a lot of people that weren't able to come that might like to see this information. So I appreciate you guys being patient with us while we do that. We're gonna put it on YouTube so people can listen to it if they missed out. With the invoice, Don't know if we've got that up yet.
Sorry, it reorganized. all
That's
the
fine.
slides.
To reorganize it. So all of you had a chance to see the invoice. Yay! I want to thank everybody, the team, because we've got away with that weird long form that you got to look sideways on. And I really worked with the NRCS to say, hey, what are our tasks and duties? What are we supposed to be doing? There were a lot of things on our old kind of duties list that were like, really, we don't do that at all. A lot of those long, items in that long form, did you even do them? Did you ever mark an X in it? So we were really trying to respond to that and say, what are our duties? What are we responsible for? Can we simplify this? Do we have to do this huge long form? And more importantly, is anybody taking that data and using it? What's the use of us collecting it if it's just all going to the trash can somewhere else? So we really worked with the NRCS for some time on developing an updated tasks and duties list. And we'll go through that a little bit more, but once we got that list, that's what we've been basing our invoice and our work products information on, so that they all correspond together. So, as you can see, we just have a few broad categories now, and this is coming from the NRCS. This is how they envision our work to be. This is how they envision the assistance that they need. So they need help in applications, and they're breaking that into new applications, funded applications, or unfunded applications. Contracts, various different things that you'll do in contracts, the DMS system, other duties, but again, other duties just for these two programs, and then Conservation Client Gateway. So hopefully this is a much simpler, form for you to use. So this will be not only your invoice, but your work products as well. So this just one sheet is all you'll need to be submitting to me. I like that it's one sheet because, man, I just don't like to waste all the paper and the ink, and it's crazy. So this will be what you'll submit as your invoice / work products on a monthly basis with your signature and the DC signature. Again, please, original signatures, e-signature.
Question. The DMS stuff, when you're uploading into DMS, it's usually for applications or contracts. So where do you report that both places?
Keep it
or
simple, report it in DMS.
In DMS.
Don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
report it in DMS. So, but you're right, DMS will cover a lot of boundaries. So if you're working in DMS, put it in DMS. I tried to get them to do all correspondence just in one. So as you'll see, as we work down, so we did put all the tasks and duties just below this, and I actually even added a second little invoice here, a little tab for your suggestion that just has the tasks and duties. So as you're scrolling back down through that, you will see that there's correspondence needed in a new application. Correspondence, you might have to write a letter for all these different areas, but break it out the best you can. So I tried to get like a just line that said correspondence, but I don't either.
So then, for auditing purposes, then, are you attaching your timesheet to this?
No, I'm not. I am not, but
Should we be?
we'll be going over that. But here's, I guess, from my perspective, I am responding, we are all responding to what the NRCS is asking us to do. I don't want you guys to report more than they're asking me to report. Why do we need that? So honestly, that big long spreadsheet, I would send that to them every quarter. I don't think anybody, other than like, oh, okay, they did that many hours. I honestly, just being honest, I don't think anybody at the NRCS actually used it. That was something as a remnant from early on in our contract, and frankly, it just needed to be revised. So,
But just like we said with the CRP work, though, Betty, because NRCS is going to come in and probably do these quality assurance reviews, you should keep a separate log. Number one, your DC might ask to see that before she will sign off on your
work
assistance invoice. So you might have to submit that with that to have them sign it. But then if NRCS ever comes back and wants to look at any of this stuff, you have a record. And so in your packets there, I think there is a sample log sheet. You don't have to use that log sheet, folks. That was just a suggestion that, here's what you might want to keep track of. Develop your own method for doing that.
or have one that's maybe tied a bit to the invoice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you
fine
can just
too.
add a worksheet
So you can-
and then just keep a running log.
Yeah.
And then it's all bundled together.
Yep.
So if you did, then you'd know what time and date and then you could have a work log supplementing for your reference.
Whatever works for you, just keep record of it.
Okay, so, as in the other invoice, you just fill out what's in yellow. Obviously, I need critical information like your county, but also this drop-down one for me is really important. So, I get a lot of this, okay, well, it's my June invoice. Well, it's not your June invoice, it's actually your May invoice. You just submitted it in June. So for me, it's your May's work. So I call it May, but you guys call it, a lot of people call it June. So I'm trying to eliminate that so we're clear of which one it is. So please, it's the work that you committed here and you invoiced here. So that's what I'm trying to get at. That's just a helpful thing for me, so I appreciate that. Everything else seems pretty self-explanatory. It does exactly tie to your tasks and duties that is not only in your sub-agreement, but what we've handed out to you and what's at the bottom here. So there's no changes in it. All those things are exactly the same. Make sense? Okay. Again, we've already talked about signatures. I'm not going to go over that again. And again, one of your little tips things says, although we're just asking you to report your hours, it probably would behoove you to have something to show your work, especially if your DC is not there all the time, or if your DC is in another county, or you're covering the work for a different county. Might be nice. They might say, hey, well, you really did 18 hours of that. What did you do? And you could say, hey, look here, that's what I've done. Okay. Then I'm going to harp with you guys on for a minute on Protrax. Protrax has been just a pain in my side. I'd say something more harsh, but I'm in public. So they track Protrax. They really do. So if you guys are not logging onto Protrax, they know you're not logging into Protrax, and they send me long lists of all the counties and all the people who haven't got their Protrax for emissions active. And then I've got to turn around and call and whine and complain to you guys, and it's just not fun. And also they're really concerned about those counties who have no person that's actually active in Protrax. So if it's your responsibility to cover that county, and you're the only person covering that county, one, do the work in Protrax, but two, if you're not doing any work right then, it's a slow time, or just get in there twice a month. Put a reminder on your own calendar or phone or whatever works for you on the 1st and the 15th. Just log in. That's it. Log in. Log back out again. But just please try to keep that active. It will reduce a lot of stress on me. But also the NRCS sees that as an indication of how much work we're doing. So if they've got this whole long list of 20 people who are not active on Protrax, they take that as well, you guys aren't doing any work then. So what are those districts doing? Can you tell me if they're not working in Protrax, what type of work are they doing? So I've had those questions. So let's try to eliminate that as much as we can this year. That would be great. Okay, primary and secondary. I know we talked about it a little bit with the webinar, if you were able to listen to the webinar, but again, we need to respond to our client, and we are doing work for the NRCS, of which they're paying us for that work. It is their expectation that all of the administrative work for CSP and EQIP is going to be done by the SWCDs. If you are not able to do that work, we're asking that you have somebody else as your backup. It could be somebody on your own district. It could be your AC and RC are sharing those jobs. It could be somebody on another county. But from my perspective, I don't care how you arrange that. That's a distinction between the districts, and you guys are all autonomous districts. You all know how it works best for you. You all decide how that gets done. If there has to be a money change, I kind of think it might be more of a gentleman's agreement, ladies' agreement, to share that workload, but that doesn't always work for every county. So it's really a county by county thing, and I would hope that you would kind of partner and work together, and if it becomes an issue and it becomes a problem, don't forget our subcontracts, our sub-agreements can be canceled at any time. You can cancel it, you can make modifications at any time. Hey, this relationship with the secondary isn't working, we're going to get rid of that secondary and we're going to put a different secondary. It's just a contract revision. It would take a couple of hours to do. So before I move on from the primary secondary, does anybody have any other kind of burning questions on primary secondary? Because it's a new thing we're doing.
Just really quick with the NRCS area administrator, should we just let our DC know and then go the way? Just again, trying to be respectful of chain of command.
What I'm planning on doing is, Megan's question, should we let the NRCS kind of know what's going on? Once I collect all of the sub-agreements where you all have listed out who's your primary and secondary, I'm gonna put that into a spreadsheet and send that to all the areas. So the area regional conservationists will then be able to get that down to all the DCs, so that they know if Cindy's not here, they can call.
But I mean to request permission, because it says please contact to add all. I was trying to follow the proper chain of command. I didn't know if we should go through our DC before the area administrator. That was more my.
I'm sorry, so say your question?
So it says please contact your NRCS area administrator to add permissions for Protrax, because we just are very focused on properly following chain of command. Should we contact our DC and let the DC let the area administrator know?
We should have maybe clarified that one a little bit on the tip. Sorry, these were made in a haste, and Rhonda did a great job on them, and I've not caught anything, everything. And I just had that conversation with Brenda a minute ago. If you are the secondary for another county, then do you need to add that county onto your Protrax? Probably yes, you do. So let's get to the point though, so give me a couple more weeks. Let me get to the point where I can identify everybody's primary and secondary, and I'll talk to the NRCS and say, hey, are you ready to get, 25, 80, 1143, whatever the form is, that will add these counties on, and let's make sure that they have a list of all of the counties that'll cover. So
Are
we'll
we
get
gonna
those.
do that, or are you going to do that?
I'll initiate it, but then you guys may have to sign the forms.
Okay.
But I will initiate that, okay? Just I want to make sure what level the NRCS wants that. Oh, go ahead.
This is just more of a statement. In doing that, would it be helpful if we let you know if we already have permissions in another county?
I have that.
Okay.
I know. I do. No, just kidding. No, I do have, I maintain that list.
Okay.
So that's fine. And Sue?
Cindy had a question. She said, what if your primary, secondary is in a different cluster, if your district grouping or what? It doesn't matter. The suggestion was to stay within your district grouping simply for the ease of your district conservationists to communicate. But if that relationship doesn't work out, that's perfectly fine. It can be anybody.
Well, it's just that we are probably going to hire an RC,
Okay,
but there's no other RCs in my cluster.
okay,
So,
yeah.
If at that point in time you want to change your secondary, just let me know and we'll change it. Okay? And Joyce?
My question is, okay, so if I'm gonna be gone and whoever my secondary is or whatever, do I need to let NRCS know?
I would hope you would.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as a normal routine business, I would hope that you would say, hey, I'm going to be on 2 weeks vacation. Don't forget if you got something urgent coming up in Protrax that you have to get done.
And by that
And we do,
mean
in
the
our
DC.
county, in our own county, we kind of work around that anyway, so
Yeah.
a secondary is really,
Right,
Right.
right.
So that's my hope, is that you guys keep this coordinated. I do have to say, not all districts are created equal. In some of the districts, I had a district that just kind of disappeared for about 3 months, and they had nobody doing the contract, but they still wanted to get paid. Well, this is where this is all coming from. So if we could just be responsive, but at the end of the day, really, if you're off on Friday, what's the chance of that really urgent thing that has to come down just that day?
And remember that Eric did say on the conference call that in those emergency deadline cases, it is going to be okay for NRCS staff to do those things if need be, okay? The idea would be if you're not there, they contact the secondary, but if it happens, you're on vacation, the secondary's day off, NRCS state can do that in that emergency deadline situation. Hopefully we don't have a lot of those, but it is a possibility. So.
It's a possibility, but you guys have done
Cut
this.
down Friday,
Yeah.
that there's a letter due, it came late Friday, or I was leaving, or whatever, and it's due by like Thursday or something of this week, and I assumed Aaron was gonna go ahead and do it. It's a letter.
Yeah.
Equip or CSP, I can't remember.
So there might be those cases, but the expectation is that if you're not there, somebody will cover for you, and your DC would know that that's happening. If it's an extended period of time that you're not going to be covering, you're off on maternity leave, you've just won the lotto and you're gonna take a 2-month vacation. Just let me know that so that we assure that we have coverage for you. The contract with us is 100% coverage to every NRCS field office, and they expect that.
I have a question. It might be off topic and you may have already covered it, but, so let's say you're like my district and you have a fancy NRCS guy who kind of half refuses to give you the work because he would prefer to sit at his desk and do the work.
Yeah.
Is that going to reflect on us, or is NRCS going to actually step in and say something to these people and like actually have some kind of reprimand to say, hey, you can't be doing this, we have a contract with Soil and Water? Because it's a constant battle in my office, I'm not going to lie. I love Tyler to death, he's awesome, but he is like the epitome of lazy when it comes to certain things. And that's fine, that's great, but if I'm going to have a contract with NRCS to do the work, and then I have to report these values and I have to report what I've done, how am I supposed to do that if I'm not being given the work?
Absolutely. So this has been a very common theme. You're not alone. There are so many districts out there that have this same issue. And this year we've tried to just kind of work through some of those and address them on a case by case. But no, I think this contract, it's a lot of money. They have expectations. And if your district DC's soil cons are not giving you that money, this is one of the exceptions for the whole chain of command, I think, in my opinion, going to your employees rep. Just bring that to my attention, and honestly, I'll see it from your invoices. An hour, 2 hours, yeah. So, but please don't feel reluctant to inform me, because will your DC be reprimanded? Not if you don't tell somebody about it.
Right.
Okay, so you have to give that information to me. And we've really had that commitment from Ivan this year that he wants the work done by the SWCDs. He wants you all to do that work, and he is committed to getting after those district folks who are doing, the NRCS folks who are doing that work and not handing it over to you. They're committed to that. Now, it may take some time,
Sure.
but
It's a change, and I get
yep,
that,
but
but
if you let me know, I promise you, it will go to the NRCS for action.
Can't they track all that in protracts
I was just going to
anyway?
say that, Brenda. And so
Yeah.
a note on that is, NRCS, state office level, area level can get on and they can see who's doing the work. And that goes both ways, folks. They can see that NRCS is doing that work and you're not, so
Right.
keep that in mind too. So don't be claiming you did that work
right,
if
you can't claim it.
if you can't claim it, type thing too. But so if you're reporting to Cheryl that, hey, they're not giving me that work, and Cheryl contacts NRCS state office, Jody Bell, and tells her about it, they're going to be able to go in there and see, yeah, they're telling the truth. NRCS is doing that work themselves, and it's it's going to come down through their chain of command then to fix that
It's not
problem.
going to get changed overnight.
Oh, sure.
And
No, and I
people
don't
are going to,
expect
but
that.
it is a learning curve.
Sure.
And at least we do have the commitment from the NRCS, they are going to address it.
Okay.
And I'm going to address it, so, okay? So primary and secondary, the other thing that I really, this ties into what you're just saying, because I can't remember your name.
Stacy?
Stacy.
Yep.
There you go. So what Stacy is saying, I want all invoices, every single month. I don't want you just to not submit one. If you have zero work, submit a zero invoice, and I want your DC signing it. I need to have that. If nobody's complaining about them not giving you work, I need to have that, and that's evidence. Hey, look, NRCS, they're submitting zero invoices, and your DC signed it. Do they just not have any work that month? Is it a slow month? Or are they something else going on? So I want invoices, 100% all invoices every month, even if it's a zero, and I want those invoices signed. I just think that is going to force those DCs to think, oh God, I'm signing my name here that I'm not giving them any work. Uh-oh, I don't know. We're going to try it. We're going to try it. Okay, and then again, this year, unlike last year's, and I don't know if it's anybody's fault. We had a task and duties list. We had a whole list of responsibilities that they wanted us to do with this administrative assistance contract from a couple years ago. Man, we looked at that thing this year. I'd say 60% of it we weren't supposed to be doing. So that's the change that's coming this year. We've really taken a look at all those roles and responsibilities and got clarification from NRCS that they just want us to work only on CSP and EQIP, okay? So that's the only thing we're wanting you to report on. Obviously,
There are subcategories to CSP and EQIP, those being RCPP and MRBI if you have any of those. So we're not mentioning those specifically because those are actually subcategories to those programs, or vice versa, however you want to look at it.
I'm going to skip down to the next one. Keep me informed if you're having any issues, trouble getting on or accessing or needing ProTracks. Definitely let me know as soon as you can. Getting on the job training, getting help from your NRCS of what they want you to do. But especially if your primary or secondary is left, because it is in your subcontract, but if it's longer than 30 days, I'll give the work to some other district. I mean, I have to. It's not that I'm punishing anybody, it's just we have an agreement with the NRCS to provide 100% coverage. So if it's been more than a month that district is not covering it, maybe their employee left and they've not made any provisions. But it's not that difficult to make some provisions, I think. I had a county last year where the ACRC was leaving, and they were going to have a period of time where they just were trying to fill the position, but they were vacant. So I went to those neighboring counties and said, who wants to cover this work just from the time period that it will take for them to rehire? And a couple other counties said, hey, I'll do the work. So, and then the original county took the work back when they had staff again. So it should be a joint kind of thing, but that's what I'm looking to continue to do, is to get that work assigned to another county if for any reason that primary contact is unable to do that work for an extended period of time. Maternity leave, a long vacation, out sick, whatever. Okay. And then again, we had kind of talked about, I'll let you kind of start going through some of the others, but I really loved her suggestions of kind of making a booklet of the go-to place where you can get this documentation information. And I actually need to do that because I'm always telling people to log on to ProTracks, and I don't even know how to get on there, so we totally will. ProTracks. So I'm going to let Rhonda keep talking about a few things.
Okay. Next on there, again, this is just like the CRP stuff. We're recommending that you make yourself some sort of a guidebook, that all of these, maybe these handouts that we're giving you today, you find them very useful. If not, at a minimum, I would suggest that DMS upload table gets put into your guidebook, because that thing you are going to need when you're doing payments, when you're doing modifications, when you're doing uploading and obligating contracts and stuff like that. That will be your lifeline, is to know what you need to upload to DMS. So that at a minimum should be something that you have very handy.
Make sure you have the most current version too.
Yes.
The bulletin came out like June 16th time frame, so the one before that was February. So there's new guidance, new pages added too. So make sure you're using the current guidance.
Well, if we have time, that's something we're going to go through.
Yep, she's got links for you.
With the handouts that you have there in your sheet there too. And so just then, bookmarking these websites that we have here. And I'm just going to go through the rest of these tips, if that's okay with everybody, so Megan doesn't have to switch back and forth. We'll go back to those websites here in just a second. A note about when you're uploading to DMS, sometimes you'll get a message that your upload failed because that document was already there. And that's probably because it was automatically uploaded to DMS from ProTracks or Toolkit or something like that by an NRCS employee. And what you'll have to do is replace it instead of upload it. And guys, I'm sorry there's not enough time for us to give you every single detail about everything that you have to do. That's information you're going to have to get on the job training type stuff from your NRCS staff, okay? So next, after you upload to DMS, I always like to go back and check and make sure that all those documents that I just uploaded are truly there before I send my email to the assistant, to the area staff person and let them know that it's uploaded and ready for review. So I just recommend that you do that. And then, what's that last one? Make all necessary. That's what that one's saying. Is just make sure that everything is there. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about those last ones? Okay.
Do you have any good, easy, quick guidance to know whether you replace or if you version something in DMS?
Yes, on that DMS spreadsheet, it has the list of the documents on there. You've got a copy of it in your handouts there. And you will see over there in those columns that for CSP and EQIP, there's X's and there's A's. Okay? And so if you look at those really close, a lot of times on those A's, you will see a line, I think it's either right below it or right above it, that it looks like the exact same document saying to upload it. And what it's telling you with those A's is that document is likely already auto-uploaded to DMS. And that probably came from an NRCS staff person uploading it when they were working in Toolkit or ProTrax or some other program, maybe Kate, which is the CSP tool. They automatically uploaded it to DMS. And if it's there as a document that is eventually going to need a signature, those are the ones that you're going to have to replace. In other words, if it's a contract, okay, it might automatically get uploaded to DMS as an unsigned version by your district conservationist. But then you'll have to print it out, you'll have to get the person's signature on the contract, and then it needs to be uploaded back again with the signature on there. In those cases, you will have to replace that version because you want the version in there that has the participant's signature on it. Now, there will be some cases where you don't need to replace it, though. For instance, the quality assurance review that the district conservationist does on those, when those automatically get uploaded, that is not a document that needs a signature on it at all. So if it's already there, it's already there. There's no need to scan it and replace it again.
Okay.
And it's
when I
gonna-
got that failed notice, I could never tell, well, is it a replace or is it a version?
Well, then you're going to have to go, as a general rule, Brenda, your modifications are usually the only thing that you have versions to worry about. Everything else is normally an actual replacement, okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Do you know what I'm talking about with that?
So I think we're just quite limited on time, and I know that a lot of people probably want to go back over to the business meeting. So if we were going to take another 5 or 10 minutes of your time, would you rather just do some Q&As? I've got kind of some of the most common questions that get asked of me. We can talk about those. If you guys have any specific questions, maybe talk about the pay structure for administrative assistants. You know, we do not have the time that we had hoped to have, so what's the best use of our time?
I just have a question about the 100% coverage, like having someone in every county. Do you, for the last one, did that happen, or did you have some shared counties, and do you think that'll happen again?
We had 100% coverage, but it's not necessarily means that we have an employee on every IASWCD. So of course, we've got some districts that don't even have employees. So other people are covering those. Brenda covers Morgan and Cass. So if a county opts not to participate, which is absolutely fine, you can opt out of this. You don't have to do it, but I will assign your work to another county. With the CRP work, if you opt out of it, that's fine, you opt out of it. NRCS is gonna do it on their own. But with the assistance, if you opt out, it will be done by another district.
Sure, I do want to talk about these flowcharts because I think these are probably the most important handouts that you have for this assistance stuff. So what I prepared for you were these two flowcharts. One of them is a flowchart for the applications. When you have an application come into your office, it's actually got up here in the corner, CSP and EQIP applications. And so this is kind of a flow chart. Up the top, we've got where the application comes in and some of the steps that you need to do for that. And then below that is entering the application into ProTrax. And again, some steps there. Once that application is entered into the system, several things can happen. It can get funded, it can not get funded, or it can be canceled. And so it branches off and gives you some steps for things to do for those items as well.
Are you looking for that on the spreadsheet?
Oh, it's on my screen. It's just not on that.
Well, isn't that lovely that it's on your screen? I'm so happy.
Hopefully you'll all see it.
Okay.
But anyway, what I want to say about this is I gave you as much detailed information as I could that would fit on the sheet. So you will notice some of these things are actually telling you log into ProTrax, and it gives you like, click on this, click on that. When I had the room, I gave you that much information, okay? When I didn't have that much room, for instance, with the obligation stuff here, these are the general steps that you go through, okay? There's not a lot of detail there, but this is the general stuff that you do. And then the other one, the contracts one, where it says right there in the middle of it, a fully obligated contract. From that fully obligated contract, here's all the things that could happen to that contract, okay? And you'll kind of notice that we're mostly working up here with making payments, modifying the contract, and completing the contract and that type of stuff. Most of the review stuff, NRCS is going to handle a lot of this stuff down here in these corners. We might assist probably with some letters and that type of thing. But again, if I had room to give you the detailed information, I gave it to you. If I didn't, it's a more general step-by-step. All these things you're going to have to get on the job training to do them, but this is just kind of a keeping you pointed in the right direction, kind of a flow chart, if you will, that you might find helpful, okay? Especially if you're jumping in the middle. Maybe it's already been made a contract and you don't know where it needs to go or what needs to happen, okay? If you look back at these website sheets, guys, on SharePoint, and there's even some help stuff on the ProTrax, there are some step-by-step documents already out there. A lot of those are on SharePoint. Some of them are good, some of them not so good. But, you know, especially like a step-by-step.
We can't get on SharePoint.
No, we
You almost
can't.
Not all of us, no.
They haven't given you the.
Yeah.
CJ
Yeah,
sends me
I
the link
can.
all the time, I click on it and it tells me we don't have permission.
And see, that's where I was going with it not too long ago, and I hope Spring wasn't mad at me, because I was told to go straight to NRCS.
Okay, are you guys trying to get on the NRCS SharePoint or the Illinois SWCD SharePoint? There is a difference. Because we only have certain permissions on it, and that was one of the questions that was asked on the training. You know, is the soil water district going to get permission to upload this, that, and the other? There's a difference between the two, and the difference being the permissions that we have once we get on there. And so, while it's linking to a lot of the similar stuff, it is actually a separate website. Guys, do us a favor and go back to your offices and try this link. And see if you're
What do you want? What do you got?
on these. There's two pages. There's a ProTrax Home, ProTrax, that has all the website stuff, and then SharePoint is the bottom one. I think on the second page, right?
Is it in this packet?
Yep.
Yeah.
It looked like this, Sue.
Oh, you are.
Okay.
Sorry.
So SharePoint. Go home.
It works.
Yeah. Here's
It
what
works.
it
I
looks
copied
like.
it right from your document.
Yeah.
And it says SWCD. You can't see it on the way the address is showing up, but oh, maybe you can right here. It's very tiny, but it says /SWCD/. So this is our specific link in.
Yeah. So maybe
So her
that's the problem.
website is correct.
Maybe your DCs are sending you their link to SharePoint.
Yeah,
And-
see, this
and
will be
not
your
this
key.
one.
Making sure you've got this SWCD in the middle. So this website should take you, so maybe head back to FSC if that works. If so, great. If not, then we'll let Cheryl know.
Now you will need EOF, you know, to get on it. So you have to have your link pass card in and everything, and you may have to type in your password, or it may automatically.
Do we need to go to the same place that we go to get to ProTrax, or we go to get to?
No, it's a completely different website.
Different.
Although,
So
guys,
just type it in like this.
type it in.
Type it in like that.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
And then it says even home, Illinois SWCD. So it'll look different than the one that that the NRCS employees do access. I mean, same layout, but like Ron was saying, different permissions. So what we see is a little different and modified. So this is that main site, and then you can also mention FA Tracker from here.
This is Pro Home. This is Pro Home. And just while Megan's on here,
And I'll show you your site. So this is where I was at. It's the first one, your first sheet, top website.
ProTrack's Home. And just to show you when she was back on there, that over there in that corner under the I Want To, there is a link to ProTracks. There's a link to DMS. There's a link to the FA Tracker, which is where a lot of the reports are that your district conservationists might be interested in knowing, because this tells him what contracts are behind schedule, what contracts have modifications pending.
I just want to make sure, I'm here, I'm available by phone, so please call me anytime you want, any question you have. Absolutely, I've spent days on the phone recently, so it doesn't bother me at all. I'm a dedicated employee, this is all I do, is this contract, this contribution agreement. But if you have any questions now, let's kind of go over them, because as some people were saying that weren't able to be here, they don't even remember, they don't even think about what questions to ask.